You might not believe it, but the story of a 70-pound Doberman pinscher who stood up to predators weighing over 400 pounds and created a miracle is an undeniable fact. This incredible event happened at the Greenwood Wildlife Sanctuary in the United States and became a top news story for media outlets all over the world. CNN, the BBC, and of course, all the major American television networks reported on it extensively. It even drew special attention from the White House. But this isn't just a simple animal story. How on earth did a Doberman bring peace to a situation of absolute crisis? How could this dog, with his lean body, move the hearts of beasts many times his size? The story I'm about to tell you will fundamentally change the way you think. It will teach you about the incredible power of love and the true meaning of courage. If you could take just a moment to subscribe and hit the like button, I promise this story will be even more compelling. Now, let's begin. It was 3 years ago that I was dispatched to the Greenwood Wildlife Sanctuary. I'm an animal behaviorist specializing in canine communication programs, and I had received an emergency request from the sanctuary. To be honest, I hesitated at first. The decision to work in an unfamiliar place, a new environment, was not an easy one, but my heart was moved by the desperate plea to help save a life. My meeting with Max goes back 5 years. At the time, Max was a young puppy who had lost his mother and was left all alone. When I first met him at a rescue shelter in the Northeast, I was struck by how calm and quiet he was. Setting him apart from the other puppies, Max went on to show astonishing focus and learning abilities at the Canine Police Dog Training Academy. His ability to communicate with other animals was especially remarkable. However, he was eventually honorably discharged from the program. The official report cited that he lacked the necessary aggression for high-stress engagements. The truth was, he was too gentle, too empathetic. There was even a time at the training center when he discovered an injured stray cat and patiently nursed it back to health. On the day Max and I boarded the plane at JFK International Airport, he was perfectly calm, as if he knew exactly what was about to happen. He didn't bark once during the long flight. By the time we arrived at Greenwood Wildlife Sanctuary, the sun had already set. The director, Mr. Davies, met us himself. I had heard he was a conservative man who stuck to the rules, but his expression that day was incredibly grim. "Dr. Cole, we're out of time," he said. "There's no more room for hesitation." The director's voice was filled with despair. The entire park was shrouded in a tense atmosphere, and the faces of the staff I passed were dark with worry. My heart grew heavy as I followed the director toward the tiger enclosure. As we walked down the corridor, the calls of other animals, the damp air unique to this region, and my anxiety about the situation we were about to face swirled in my head. Max, too, was walking more cautiously than usual, observing his surroundings. When we finally reached the tiger nursery, a shocking scene unfolded before us. I'll never forget the first time I saw the two tiny cubs born to their mother. Suri, whenever the cubs, from inside their incubator, tried to get closer to her, Suri would snarl and let out a threatening growl. She refused to nurse them and even tried to push them away with her massive paws. Suri's eyes were filled with extreme stress and confusion. "How did this happen?" I asked. The director sighed deeply and replied, "Suri seems to be under severe stress from a difficult birth. She also had complications. She has completely abandoned her parental duties for 3 days now. We can't wait any longer." My heart ached as I looked at the two small cubs sleeping peacefully in the incubator, their breaths faint and shallow. I named them on the spot, Kale and Sasha. Kale seemed to be the calm and cautious one, while Sasha, though smaller, looked full of life. They were both brimming with vitality, but without their mother's love and care, they couldn't possibly grow up healthy. It was then that Max showed a special reaction. As I watched his eyes fixated on the cubs, I felt a strange intuition. It was a gaze that seemed to say he had made a decision. Max slowly approached the incubator and quietly sat down. Seeing that, my heart suddenly began to pound. The next day, we began the intensive process of artificial feeding. The cubs needed to be given milk every 2 hours, a task that proved far more difficult than I had imagined. Kale refused the bottle, and Sasha kept spilling her milk. My biggest concern was their social development. It's often said that predators raised entirely by humans struggle to get along with other animals later in life. "This can't continue," I told Director Davies, his expression darkening. "Then what do we do?" he asked. I hesitated for a moment before speaking. "I want to let Max try." The director's eyes widened. "A Doberman? With tiger cubs? Isn't that too dangerous?" The reaction from the zoo staff was the same. The head veterinarian, Dr. Anya Sharma, strongly objected. "Dr. Cole, with all due respect, no matter how gentle a dog is, a tiger is an apex predator. there's a high probability their instincts will cause them to reject each other. Or worse. The head keeper, Frank Miller, added worriedly, what if the cubs attack Max? Or if Max panics and runs? But I believed in Max. In our 5 years together, he had never once let me down. I remembered how he cared for other animals, and I was convinced he would be warm and gentle with the cubs. Please, just give us one day, one chance, I pleaded. The director thought long and hard. Finally, he gave his permission with one condition. You must promise to stop immediately if you see the slightest sign of danger. That afternoon, we attempted the first meeting between Max and the cubs. We took Kale and Sasha out of the incubator, placed him on the floor, and then slowly let Max into the room. The entire staff held their breath, watching. Max cautiously approached the cubs. But contrary to our hopes, the cubs were terrified of him. Kale hid in a corner, and Sasha, despite her tiny body, let out a little hiss. Max stood there, looking bewildered, his face clearly showing he didn't know what to do. Even after 30 minutes, the cubs wouldn't go near him. I guess it was impossible, Dr. Sharma said with a look of disappointment. They're different species. After all, the other staff members nodded in agreement. I was disappointed too, but I couldn't give up. When I looked into Max's eyes, it seemed he hadn't given up either. That night, I couldn't sleep a wink. I sat in my room with Max, lost in thought. Max, are we missing something? I asked. He looked up at me and gave a soft wag of his tail. Seeing him, my heart felt a little lighter. Around 3 a.m., an idea struck me. Maybe we had been too hasty. Max needed time to adjust. The cubs needed time to get used to his scent and presence. Even in nature, a mother and her young don't always form a perfect bond from the very beginning. The next morning, I went to see the director again. Director, please give us one more day. I'm going to try a different method this time. He was hesitant, but seeing my desperate plea, he granted me one last chance. All right, but this is really the last time. This time, instead of direct contact, we started by letting them get used to each other's presence. We placed a transparent acrylic divider in the room, with Max on one side and the cubs on the other. Max lay down quietly, observing the cubs, and gradually, they began to show interest in him. On the second day, a miracle happened. When I entered the enclosure early in the morning, Sasha was right by the divider, staring at Max. Max was lying quietly, watching her back. It was as if a strange connection was forming between them. I think we should remove the divider today, I suggested cautiously, but the director still looked worried. Are you absolutely sure? But seeing Max's calm demeanor and the cubs' different reactions, he finally agreed. As the divider was slowly removed, it was Sasha who moved first. With tiny, careful steps, she approached Max and began to sniff him. Max didn't move a muscle, lying perfectly still. It was as if he was telling her, "It's okay, I won't hurt you." And then, something astonishing happened. Sasha moved toward Max's belly and started searching for milk. Max, having never been a father, miraculously accepted her. Perhaps his paternal instincts had awakened, because he started licking Sasha's head. My God, Dr. Sharma whispered in amazement. I can't believe this is actually happening. As the entire staff watched in breathless silence, Kale also slowly approached Max. He was more cautious than his sister, but eventually, he curled up against Max's side. That afternoon, for the first time, I saw the three of them sleeping together. Max lay in the middle, with Kale and Sasha snuggled tightly on either side of him. Seeing that peaceful sight, tears welled up in my eyes. They truly looked like a family. Can I take a picture? I asked, and the director gladly gave his permission. I initially took it just as a memento, but I never imagined that photo would later become part of a major event. Using a small digital camera without a flash, I captured the beautiful scene. From the next week on, true miracles began to happen one after another. Max raised the cubs as if they were his own. He would let them eat first, and he always held them close when they slept. Kale would only drink his milk when cradled in Max's paws, and Sasha took to sleeping with her head resting on Max's legs. What surprised us most was Max's method of discipline. If the cubs wandered too far, he would call them back with a soft whine, and if they did something dangerous, he would gently block their path. He was like an experienced mother. Once, when Sasha fell into a puddle, Max quickly rushed over and pulled her out with his mouth. 2 weeks later, the cubs' weight had visibly increased. Kale went from 9 pounds to 15, and Sasha from 8.5 to 14. But the biggest change was that they had regained their emotional stability. The cubs who were once startled by the slightest sound were now exploring their surroundings with curious and confident faces. The attitude of the sanctuary staff also changed completely. Even Dr. Sharma, who had initially opposed the idea, said, This is nothing short of a miracle. We might have to rewrite the veterinary textbooks. Frank Miller, the keeper team leader, started coming by every day to observe this special family. Dr. Cole, why don't we get this on video? Director Davies suggested. I hesitated, worried it might stress them out. But since Max and the cubs were used to humans, we decided to film them carefully. The first video we shot recorded Max licking the cubs, playing with them, and sleeping peacefully together. It was a short video, only about 3 minutes long, but everyone who saw it was deeply moved. May we post this on the sanctuary's website? The communications team asked. I was conflicted. I thought that too much fame might not be good for Max. But I also wanted to share this beautiful story with as many people as possible. In the end, we posted the video on the website, and the response was explosive. In just one day, it had over 1 million views, and hundreds of comments poured in. So touching. Animals have love too. Max is wonderful. The reactions just kept coming. A year passed. Kale and Sasha were now magnificent young tigers. Kale weighed 80 pounds, and Sasha was 70. When they were with Max, they still acted like cubs. But at other times, their wild instincts were beginning to surface. The biggest problem was space. Their current enclosure was becoming smaller by the day. It was completely inadequate for young tigers who needed to run and play. Furthermore, Max was starting to show signs of exhaustion. Taking care of 2 tigers, even young ones, was hard labor for a 70-pound dog. We need to prepare a new enclosure, Director Davies said at a meeting. I agreed, but there was a budget problem. Building a new, dedicated tiger enclosure would cost an enormous amount of money. Let's use the existing large enclosure, the director proposed. The problem was that the large enclosure was already home to other animals. It was a pair of lions, Leo and Zara. They had arrived from another zoo 4 months earlier. Leo was a 4-year-old male, large and aggressive. Zara was a 3-year-old female, quiet but highly observant. Is it really okay to put lions and tigers in the same space? I asked, concerned. Dr. Sharma shared my worries. In the wild, they are competitors. A territorial dispute is highly likely. But there were no other options. The director made a careful decision. Let's proceed in stages. We'll install a divider to let them get used to each other. And then we'll cautiously attempt to house them together. I agreed that this was the best approach. The day of the move to the large enclosure finally came. We first moved Max and the tiger siblings into one section. As soon as they saw the lions through the divider, Kale and Sasha reacted immediately. Kale hid behind Max, while Sasha showed her wariness with a low growl. The lions' reactions were also interesting. Upon seeing the tigers, Leo bristled as if his pride had been wounded. He saw them as intruders in his territory. In contrast, Zara was quite calm. She observed the tigers without any particular reaction. What surprised me most was Max's attitude. From the moment he first saw the lions, he was visibly tense. The usually calm Max was now constantly pacing anxiously in front of his cubs. It was as if he had sensed the danger. The first week passed relatively peacefully. There was no direct contact because of the divider, but they cautiously observed each other, acknowledging the other's presence. However, after a few days, small changes began to appear. Feeding time became the most tense moment. Although their food was placed in separate areas, Leo showed deep frustration watching the tigers eat. Once, Leo rushed at the divider, roaring fiercely. Startled by the sound, Kale ran to Max and clung to him. I feel a sense of unease, I told the director, and he looked worried too. We need to observe them a little longer. We shouldn't rush to remove the divider. Sasha's change was the most noticeable. Her curious nature led her to take a special interest in the lions. She often sent challenging gazes toward Leo. Max tried to calm her by licking her, but I could feel that Sasha's wild instincts were growing stronger each day. After 2 weeks, small clashes began. There was no direct physical contact, but they were aware of each other and showed their competitiveness. Leo roared with a louder voice, and Sasha responded in kind, not backing down. Kale remained passive but started to show a willingness to protect his sister. Max tried to play the role of mediator in this situation. When the tigers got too excited, he would use his own body to block them and try to calm them down. But I could see his stress increasing day by day. He was eating less and had become more sensitive than usual. This situation can't continue. I expressed my concerns, and the park staff shared my sentiment. But there was no clear solution. There was no budget to build a new enclosure, and moving the lions to another facility was not an option. Amidst this, signs of a decisive incident began to appear. Sasha became more and more assertive, and Leo started to show clear signs of wanting to confront her. The tension between the two predators was reaching its limit. Entering the 3rd week, the situation began to deteriorate rapidly. The conflict between Sasha and the male lion had become serious. At breakfast time, the two would invariably snarl at each other through the divider. Although Sasha was smaller than Leo, she didn't back down an inch. The most serious issue was the territorial dispute. Leo considered the entire large enclosure his territory. If the tigers even slightly tried to cross a perceived boundary, he would immediately threaten them with a roar. Sasha would fight back, approaching the divider to challenge him. The fight over food was also fierce. Originally, the lions and tigers were fed at different times, but Leo started to get agitated whenever he smelled the tiger's food. Once, while Sasha was eating, Leo clawed at the divider and protested violently. The scene was so terrifying that Kale got scared and hid behind Max. Kale's attitude remained neutral. True to his nature, he was very cautious. Even when Sasha confronted Leo, he never directly participated. However, it was clear he was ready to jump in at any moment if his sister was in danger. The sight of Kale standing nervously beside Max, watching the situation, was painful to see. Zara calmly observed the entire situation. She didn't provoke him directly like Leo, but she watched the tiger's every move. She seemed to show a special interest in Max, as if trying to understand his role. The one suffering the most was Max. He could no longer care for the cubs with the peace of mind he once had. He was constantly on high alert, reacting sensitively to the smallest sounds. He couldn't sleep peacefully at night and seemed to stay awake to protect the cubs. "He seems incredibly stressed," I said to Dr. Sharma, and she was worried too. "He's also lost 4 pounds. If this continues, it could affect his health." Indeed, Max's coat had lost its sheen, and his appetite had dropped significantly. And then one day, the first serious incident occurred. While Sasha was playing, she accidentally kicked over a water bucket near the divider, and the water splashed onto Leo. Leo took this as a provocation and became enraged. With a terrifying roar, he charged at the divider and began to shake it violently with his front paws. In that moment, I could hear the divider creaking. "Danger!" I shouted, but Leo wouldn't stop. Sasha didn't back down an inch and tried to fight back. Fortunately, Frank Miller quickly brought a fire extinguisher, and the sound of it startled Leo into calming down. "We need to reinforce the divider to be stronger," Director Davies urgently instructed, but that wasn't a fundamental solution. The problem wasn't the divider, it was the competitive instinct between the two species. I tried various methods. I completely changed their feeding times and even spread fragrant herbs in the enclosure to try to reduce their stress. I even played classical music to soften the atmosphere. But nothing worked. What broke my heart the most was the change in Max. The dog who once playfully wrestled with the cubs was now constantly on guard. If the tigers tried to approach the divider, he would immediately block them with his body. And at night, he slept with one eye open. "The mother dog seems very stressed," I noted. Sasha seemed to sense the change in Max too, and she became more subdued than usual. But the conflict with Leo didn't stop. In fact, it grew more intense. A week later, a second incident occurred. This time, it was because of food. A portion of Leo's food was accidentally thrown into the tiger's area. When Sasha showed interest in the meat, Leo completely lost his senses. He slammed his body against the divider and tried to tear it apart with his claws. This time, a part of the divider actually broke. "This is really dangerous," Dr. Sharma said, her face pale. The thought of the divider being completely destroyed was terrifying. That night, I had a long meeting with the director. "Can't we move the lions somewhere else?" I suggested, but the director shook his head. "There's nowhere for them to go. Other zoos are already at full capacity." In the end, we decided to double reinforce the divider. But it was clear that this was not a fundamental solution. A bigger accident was bound to happen someday. Unfortunately, that premonition came true. The next morning when I went to the enclosure, a different kind of tension filled the air. Leo and Sasha were growling and glaring at each other, and Max was pacing anxiously. I had a terrible feeling that something big was about to happen. It was around 2 p.m. that day. I entered the enclosure to feed him earlier than usual and was met with a strange atmosphere. Leo was pacing more restlessly than ever, and Sasha was also walking back and forth near the divider. The problem was a temporary tarp that had been installed to reinforce the divider. It was flapping in the wind. That movement probably agitated Leo even more. His growls were more ferocious than usual. Sasha answered back with loud growls of her own. Suddenly, something terrible happened. A strong gust of wind blew, and the temporary tarp was completely torn away. At the same time, a section of the reinforced divider loosened, creating a gap. Leo saw the gap and immediately charged. "No!" I yelled, but it was too late. Leo broke through the divider and leaped into the tiger's area. Sasha didn't flinch at all and prepared to fight. The two predators began to lunge at each other. In an instant, The entire enclosure turned into a chaotic battlefield. Kale, terrified, ran to a corner, and Zara watched the situation from a distance. The other animals were also extremely agitated, crying out. Monkeys climbed trees to hide, and birds flew around, flapping their wings in terror. I quickly called for help on my radio. Emergency, the lion and tiger are fighting, but it would take time for other staff to arrive. In the meantime, Leo and Sasha fought fiercely. Leo had the advantage in size and experience, but Sasha was not losing. With the agility unique to tigers, she dodged Leo's attacks and counterattacked. The sight of the two predators swiping their claws and baring their fangs in a vicious fight was horrifying. At that moment, Max had a look on his face as if he had made a decision. The eyes of the usually gentle Max had completely changed. It was as if a will was dwelling within them, saying, "I have to go." I immediately understood his intention. "Max, no," I said, but he was already moving. He slipped through a gap in the bent door and went straight into the middle of the two fighting predators. Seeing that sight, my heart felt like it stopped. A dog weighing less than 70 pounds had just stepped between two predators weighing over 400 pounds each. When Max reached the space between Leo and Sasha, he quietly sat down. He didn't bark, nor did he make any special movements. He just sat there quietly, looking back and forth between the two beasts. It was as if he was telling them, "Stop." A miracle happened. The first to stop fighting and run to Max's side was Sasha. She realized her mother was in a dangerous place. She licked Max and nuzzled against him, as if to say, "Mum, I was so scared." Kale also gathered his courage and came near. True to his nature, he stood in front of Sasha and Max as if to protect them. The two tigers completely calmed down around Max. Leo stood frozen, a bewildered expression on his face. He seemed confused, watching the tigers he had just been fighting suddenly run to the side of this dog that had appeared out of nowhere. Max quietly lowered his head. He wasn't being threatening, nor was he being submissive. He just sat there peacefully. That quiet energy seemed to spread around him. Leo also gradually began to calm down. He took a step toward Max and sniffed his scent. Then, as if coming to his senses, he slowly backed away. His expression seemed to ask, "Why should I stop fighting for this little dog?" Zara also approached cautiously, observing the situation. Seeing Max and the tigers, she seemed to understand something. She went to Leo, nuzzled his nose, and tried to lick him. It was then that the other staff finally arrived. Everyone looked at the scene with expressions of disbelief. Just minutes ago, predators had been fighting for their lives, and now they were calmly in their respective places. The video that recorded that amazing moment was one I had quickly filmed with my cell phone. At first, I just intended to keep it as evidence, but I never dreamed that this video would later move the entire world. It captured, in full detail, the image of Max stepping between fighting beasts and bringing peace. "Is it okay to release this video?" the communications team asked cautiously. I was very hesitant. It had the potential to negatively impact the sanctuary, but I wanted to share Max's amazing actions with more people. Director Davies was also hesitant at first. "Is it right to publicize an accident?" But Dr. Sharma offered a different perspective. "This wasn't just an accident. It's a miracle. It's a message of love and peace born among animals." Finally, we decided to upload the video to the sanctuary's official YouTube channel. The title was "The Doberman Who Stopped a Lion and Tiger Fight." Honestly, I didn't have high expectations at first. I thought it was just a small story from a local sanctuary. But the response was explosive. Just 6 hours after publishing the video, the number of views exceeded 100,000, and a day later, it surpassed 1 million. Thousands of comments poured in, most of them expressing deep emotion. "Truly an angel of a dog. Animals have love too. Max is incredible," were among the comments that flooded in. 3 days later, we got a call from the American media. We received interview requests from ABC, NBC, CBS, and of course, many major newspapers. The news was reported with headlines like, "American Doberman performs a miracle." I got a call from my parents, who proudly told me, "Our grand dog is on TV." International interest was also huge. CNN reported with the headline, "American Dog Stops Fight Between Tiger and Lion," and the BBC ran a special feature titled, "The Unlikely Peacemaker." Major television stations across Asia also covered the story. Max had become an international star. What surprised me most was the news that the White House had taken an interest. We received a call from an official, saying they wanted to present an award to this special dog. I thought it was a joke at first, but it was real. They created a special award, the Presidential Medal for Animal Courage, and decided to award it to Max. On the day of the ceremony, Max was given a bath and his coat was beautifully groomed. He seemed calmer than usual. A representative from the White House personally visited the sanctuary and placed a beautiful medal around Max's neck. Even in that moment, he was calm. It was as if he knew he had done something special. The sanctuary also underwent a major change. The number of visitors increased fivefold. People came from all over the world to see Max and his family. Many of them took pictures and said things like, "We're so proud that an American dog could do something like this." Director Davies didn't miss this opportunity. He created a new area in the park called the Interspecies Harmony Zone. It was a space to show how animals of different species can live in harmony. The story of Max and the tigers was the centerpiece of this area. We also received research proposals from several universities. Animal behaviorists wanted to analyze Max's actions. They hoped to scientifically explain how one dog could mediate a conflict between predators. I participated in that research, explaining Max's special abilities. Most touching were the letters from children all over the world. Pure messages like, "I'm going to try not to fight with my friends, just like Max," and "I wish Max could come to my school," arrived one after another. Some children even drew pictures of Max and sent them to us. Animal welfare organizations also found great meaning in this event. They launched many campaigns with the message that animals also seek peace and love. Max had become a symbol of peace. Publishers also contacted us. They wanted to turn Max's story into a book. Various proposals were received, from children's picture books to documentaries. I carefully considered all these proposals, wanting only to proceed in a way that would be beneficial for Max. There was also a constant stream of appearance requests from television stations. But since filming could be stressful for Max, we were very selective about what we participated in. All the while, Max continued to care for Kale and Sasha. Nothing changed just because he became famous. He remained a gentle father and a calm mediator. If anything, all the attention seemed to be a burden to him. 3 years have passed, and Max has gotten older. He is 8 now, with white hairs in his muzzle, and his steps are not as quick as they used to be. But he continues to maintain his dignity. And above all, his warm gaze has not changed. Every morning when I enter the enclosure, Max slowly stands up, wags his tail, and greets me. Kale and Sasha are now fully grown. Kale weighs 400 pounds, and Sasha is 320. They have become enormous tigers. But in front of Max, they are still like cubs. Every night, the two of them carefully lie down next to Max to end their day. The giant tigers make Max look small, but they would never hurt him. The most surprising change has been their relationship with the lions. Leo now completely accepts Max. The lion who was initially bewildered gradually came to understand Max's special nature. Now, when Max walks by, he even lowers his head in a greeting. Zara is more proactive and sometimes comes near Max to nap with him. New family members have also joined. Last year, a leopard cub named Haru, who had lost his mother, was brought in, and Max began to care for her. This year, a lion cub named Leo Jr. was added. Max's embrace seems to be ever expanding. He warmly welcomes any animal. Director Davies has also completely changed. His former conservative demeanor has vanished, and he now places the utmost importance on the emotions and empathy of the animals. He often says, "The philosophy of this park changed thanks to Max." Indeed, Greenwood Wildlife Sanctuary is now famous as a park of empathy and healing. The number of visitors continues to increase, especially families. I often see parents telling their children the story of Max, teaching them to get along with different friends just like he did. Max has become a teaching tool. The sanctuary also established an educational facility called the Max Peace Center. It's a place where children learn about animal emotions and empathy. Through Max's story, they are taught to accept differences, help each other, and live together. Hundreds of children visit here every week. I myself have grown a lot. Through Max, I learned about the deep emotions and wisdom of animals. I now lecture on animal behavior at several universities in the United States. I'm also continuing my research on interspecies empathy, centering on Max's case. But the most precious thing is the moment I face Max every morning. Seeing him grow older sometimes hurts my heart. But at the same time, my gratitude is greater. Being by the side of such a special dog is a great fortune. Lately, Max is not as active as he used to be. He spends more time resting quietly in the shade. But when the cubs approach, he still greets them happily. His body may be old, but his heart remains that of a warm father. Kale and Sasha also sense the change in Max. They approach him more carefully than before, and if he seems tired, they quietly back away. Sometimes, when I see the two tigers sleeping with Max in the middle, as if to protect him, I truly feel that they are a real family. The other day, a bronze statue of Max was made and sent here. It was commissioned by the ASPCA, and inscribed on it are the words, "Max, who showed the spirit of compassion to the world." Countless people take photos in front of that statue at the park entrance every day. International interest still continues. Last year, Max's story was featured in a commemorative video for the UN's World Animal Day. It was broadcast all over the world with the message that peace and love can happen even between different species. Every night, I talk to Max. "Thank you," I say. "We will never forget the meaning of love that you taught us." Each time, Max softly licks my hand. It's as if he's saying, "It was nothing. I just did what anyone would do." Looking back on this story, I think it all comes down to the power of love. What Max showed wasn't power or dominance, but pure love. In the face of that love, even the most fearsome predators opened their hearts, and humans were moved as well. I want to ask all of you, which creature is stronger? The one with more physical power, or the one that knows how to love more? Looking at Max, I am convinced that true strength is born from love. Max is still here, a little slower, a little more careful, but with the same eyes. He embraces all life. Looking at him, I make a resolution today, to become a person who, like Max, can accept others instead of excluding them because of their differences. How did you like today's story? I trust you've subscribed and hit the like button. Now, please feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments section.